What is up, you guys? Today, we're starting a new video series, and this is going to be called Ask a Christian Strength Coach. So every week, I'm be taking 10 of your most pressing questions, and things you want to know about diet, about training, supplementation, even any type of performance-enhancing aids that we might have, as well as masculinity, the way that God sees it, the Bible, faith, marriage, manhood in general, anything that you guys want to know. I'm going to pick 10 questions and I'm going to blast through them. The goal is for this to be weekly, a quick rip where we go over a bunch of stuff real fast and you guys can take some nuggets away. So I have 10 questions. Now, full transparency, these ones I curated myself, but moving forward, we will be taking listener questions from Instagram, Fit Couple U, or from YouTube, or even Facebook. So we're going to take those three platforms. We're going to get 10 questions that y'all ask us, and then we're going to go live with those, or I will go live with those. So without further ado, we're going to dive right in. So make sure that you drop a comment below for questions that you might have for the next episode, as well as just things that you generally want to know. We can make long form videos around it as well, especially if it's something that requires a lot more explanation or detail. Other than that, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're trying to grow this channel and reach a bunch of Christian men, so that way we as men can become better leaders, husbands, fathers, the best people we can be, the way that God has designed us to be. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to start off with the first question, and that is, what is the fastest way for a busy dad to lose fat without living in the gym or starving himself? And I find this funny because it's actually a super big misconception around training and diet and what it actually takes to get super lean. So first and foremost, you can get super lean without going to the gym at all. So you don't even have to live there. You don't have to go at all if you don't want to. I've helped many people get sub 6% body fat without stepping foot in the gym. The reason I go to the gym is because I freaking love to go to the gym, and I'm trying to get strong as hell. I'm trying to get really strong. But if you are concerned about just getting lean, there's a million ways to do that. So you don't have to go to the gym. It's a quick answer to that. Otherwise, if you are someone who goes to the gym, honestly, the minimum effective dose, especially when you're trying to lose body fat, is more than adequate. When we're in a diet phase, you're not going to be consuming as many calories as you're burning, right? So you're already in a deficit. So doing extra volume and extra work within the gym, above and beyond what your body needs at a minimum to hold that muscle tissue, is going to be superfluous anyway. It's redundant. In fact, it might even dig you a recovery hole that you can't get out of. So, that's a quick answer. Is you need to do just enough to hold on to the tissue, give your body a reason to hold on muscle. Also, obviously, provide a stimulus for fat loss. But the vast majority of the change that you're going to see with your physique is honestly through what you put in your mouth, right? So we need to be in a very concerted, intentional deficit that progresses over time, right? So when you start off, you want to make sure that you understand the calories that you're consuming. So start by just tracking your food for 3 to 5 days. Get an average. This is, I'm eating 3,500 calories a day. Understand how many grams of protein you're consuming, carbs, fat. Cool. You know where you are. That's your baseline. Weight's not changing up and down. So we found maintenance calories for you. The first thing you're going to do is just reduce that simply. I like to go by 10%. You can be a little more aggressive if you want to do it faster, but I still wouldn't go higher than about 15 or 20% of a calorie cut. And what I like to do is remove those calories from my carbohydrates and or fat. So I like to pull from those and keep protein the same. If anything, I like to titrate protein up. You should be consuming roughly around a gram of protein per body pound anyway. I like to bring that up just a touch more when I'm in a fat loss phase. Helps me stay full, and it also makes sure that I don't lose any muscle tissue while I'm dieting. So that's where I would start. Know your maintenance calories. Pull that down by 10, 15%. Nice round number is going to be about 300 to 500 for most people, and make sure that it's coming from carbohydrates and or fat. So that's how you do it in the quickest way possible. And once you stall, you just make another adjustment with calories. That's the easiest way to get the job done here. As far as the gym, I would say minimum effective dose for most people about 3 days a week, probably about 30 to 45 minutes, as long as you're super intentional with what you're doing in the gym. Make sure that you're hitting the basics, like your squats, your presses, your pulls, the really compound things that are going to get the most muscle per minute time that you're investing in the gym. So make sure we're doing that. Make sure you're really pushing the strength, trying to hold on to every last bit of muscle that you can. Get in, get out. Do not spend any time on your phone texting or TikToking. Make sure that you're training hard, focused, in and out. You should be able to do that in 30 to 45 minutes, no problem. Get out, let the diet do the vast majority of the fat loss for you. Cool. All right, next one. Is it possible to rebuild intimacy in a marriage through fitness and leadership? Or is that just a sales pitch? No, I don't think it's not only is it just possible, and this is kind of a two-part answer. I would say it's foundational. The fitness side and the leadership side. So I'm going to come at this from a little bit different angle. Fitness says more about your commitment to controlling yourself and trying to be a better person. Like I am addicted to progress. Like I want to be a better person every single day, whether that's in my marriage, whether that's in my faith walk, whether that's in the gym with my nutrition, anything that I am trying to undertake, I am trying to progress in that every day. That's actually where I get a lot of my drive from, is simply just progression. It's a very attractive quality to females. Not that I was like swimming them before I got married, but trust me, women love that. They love when a man is trying to better himself. The second side is how you treat your body, with, taking care of it, right? It's our temple, right? It's where the Holy Spirit dwells. We're supposed to take care of this thing. It says a lot about your priorities, right? And so if you're able to control yourself, control your temple, or at least like take care of it, it not only because it makes you look good, it's also, okay, it shows your partner what you value and what your priorities are. So that's kind of the fitness side. The second side is the leadership side. And I would say this is very similar in that leadership isn't necessarily about leading them. It would be starting with how do you lead yourself. So if you're somebody who doesn't lead yourself well, like you are not very good with your time, you're not very good with your money, with how you steward your resources, or, you get overtaken by emotion all the time. You get angry, you're a hothead, or you go out drinking and partying way too much and you're hungover on Saturday and Sunday. Like that's not very good leadership, right? That's a very unattractive quality in men. So I promise you, if you start leading yourself better, meaning you are managing your time, you are managing your priorities, right? So like, God, your wife, your family, and then your fitness and the rest of the things that go below that, right? Your work, all that stuff. It's very important that she can look at you and know where your priorities lie. And when you start managing that really well, naturally, people, aka your spouse, will want to follow you, right? So they're going to trust you. And I think that's the main way to say it is we talk about leadership with respect, submission, all that fun stuff. But if we simply just swap the word submission or follow with trust, I think it's a very easy thing to understand. Is if I'm leading well, especially if I lead myself well, people are going to trust me. And it's because I'm congruent with what I say I'm going to do and what I actually end up following through and doing, right? So super important. So absolutely, yes, not only can you, it's fundamental and foundational for that intimacy. All right, next one. How do I get my energy back when I'm already exhausted from work, kids, and life? This one's actually really easy. It's simple, but not necessarily easy. But I want to address the way that the question was asked. How do I get my energy back when I'm already exhausted from work, kids, and life? So the problem here is that we've got the cart in front of the horse on this one. So we want to make sure that we are, and I'm going to go about this a little different way. So this is, sorry, I'm having a few thoughts on this one and how to portray what I want to say. So what I like to think about when it comes to energy is it's very cliche. So bear with me here. You can't pour from an empty cup, right? So if you're drawn out and empty, it's really hard to have energy. So instead of pulling back what we're pouring out, we got to fix the problem of why our cup is empty in the first place. And a lot of times this comes down to, as men, not being within the rhythm that God has laid out for us. And I heard Joby Martin on a sermon literally just this last week talk about this in a way that I'd never heard before, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense. He calls it being a Sabbath man. And what does that mean? Is God designed humans, he designed man and earth and everything in specific rhythms. If we think about creation, right? God did all this stuff, right? He created every single thing in 6 days, and then on the seventh day he rested. And that's how I always read the creation story, was from the viewpoint of God. Yeah, that might be egotistical, but I've always read it from that point of view. But if we think about it from man's point of view, like Adam gets made. He gets made on Saturday. Sunday he wakes up and he's like, God, what are we doing today? And God's like, you're gonna rest. And it kind of hit me as like a literally like a paradigm shift. So Adam didn't rest from work, he rested to work. So that was him addressing the cup. So we need to make sure that we are in a rhythm of work and rest. And what that means is not pacing yourself. You're working hard, you're going all out, but on that Sabbath day, you are taking the time to fully stop. No phones, like no work, no emails, spending time intentionally with the Lord, being grateful for what you've been given, but also with your family, doing like things that fill that cup. So that way, when you go into work the next day on Monday, you are refreshed, you are renewed, you are charged. If you don't do that, and this is literally the American culture right now, is literally hustle, grind, like it was brought to me just not too long ago, like it's literally the way that as blue collar people like talk to each other. It's like, hey bro, you stay busy, and like you always be like, oh yeah, I'm totally staying busy, but like how ridiculous is that, right? So thinking about being a Sabbath man, think about being a man who is in rhythm with the way that God literally designed us. You know, we have this blueprint, right? We have, I'll pull out my props. We've got this blueprint. This is a Bible. This is the blueprint, guys. It's the user's manual. User's manual for us and for life. And it's right in the first book, how God designed man and how he designed us to rest for work. All right, I'm gonna hop to the next one. All right, next one. What's one thing I can change this week that would make my wife and kids notice a difference in me? And I'm not gonna get sciencey on you at all on this one, because I think this one is a super simple answer. Meet God first thing in your day before you meet the world, including your wife or your kids. Spend some time, concerted in prayer, concerted in scripture, 15, 20 minutes, no time limit, but spend some time with God. Align your mind and your heart and your posture for the day before you attack the day. And it's crazy because there actually is science behind this, not just faith, but science. The first thing we're exposed to in the morning, literally within our prefrontal cortex, aligns how the tone for the rest of the day is going to be. So imagine this, and I'm sure you've experienced this because I know I have. You wake up in the morning, alarm didn't go off. It's 30 minutes past when you're supposed to wake up. You will wake up, you're running around like a chicken with your head cut off, going crazy because you're stressed out. You're trying to get everything done before you can get to work so you're not late and you don't get fired by your boss. Meanwhile, your kids are coming up to you. They got this and that you need to help them do. They can't tie their shoes today for some reason. They won't put their clothes on. Meanwhile, like, you know, your wife's probably running around too because she got up late too. So she's stressed out. She's got to get the kids to school. Imagine how your day's going to go. You start off with really high stress. But conversely, if you woke up and you had 30 minutes to just chill, read the Bible, pray, meditate on the word, think about your intention for the day. What has God called you in mission to do for today? Your day is going to go so much different, regardless of what the day throws at you. So that's how and if you do that every day, there's no way that your wife's not going to notice, man. No way. All right. Number 5, what is the biggest mistake Christian men make with strength training? And this is not just specific to Christian men. I don't think Christian men get things wrong more than other men. It's there's twofold on this, and it kind of falls into two different camps. Camp number 1 is what you'll see the vast majority of people do. And I call them the 10 reppers. You watch them do an exercise, and they do 10 reps, the same freaking weight, every single week. Chest Mondays, they're doing bench press. They got 185, they're doing 10 reps, 3 sets. And then move on to, incline dumbbell. And they do the 65-pound dumbbells for 10 reps. And then a year later, they're still doing 10 reps with the same exact weight. Well, that violates literally the first principle of strength training, which is progressive overload. It's called the SAID principle, which stands for specific adaptations to impose demands. Fancy ass way of saying your body adapts to what you tell it to do. It needs to be exposed to a novel or new stimulus in order for it to adapt, in order to get stronger, faster, grow muscle, get leaner. It needs to have a compelling reason to it. You're always doing the same thing. Your body's always it always wants to find homeostasis. It's very similar to, I give this analogy a lot to my clients, to a tanning bed. If you go to a tanning bed, and I'm like super Irish, so obviously I'm not tan year round. When I go to a tanning bed, I got to start pretty low, right? I got to start like 3 to 4 minutes, or else I'm going to get melanoma. But eventually, 3 to 4 minutes doesn't do much for me, right? I go in, it's literally 3 to 4 minutes. Skin doesn't look any different. So in order to get a darker skin tone, I have to bump it to 5 minutes or 6 minutes. And then that's going to plateau. So then I got to go to 8 minutes. And then eventually I got to go all the way up to 20 minutes. And then I got to start doing multiple days a week. Like, it's a progressive stimulus. Your muscles are very much the same way. So that's the first camp of people. And I would say the vast majority of people do that. You simply don't challenge yourself. You don't give your body a novel stimulus in order to force it to adapt by getting stronger or more muscular, leaner, etc. The second camp of the people, and these are, I fall in this camp, and I always have to check myself, is you do way the hell too much for what your body can recover from. It's because I love training, and it definitely in my younger years when I was, all the way up to like 30, 31 years old, I was a 2-a-day kind of guy. Like AM sessions, PM sessions, volume, what is that? I do all the volume. What exercises do you do for chest? All the exercises. All of them are taken to failure. All of them have drop sets. All of them have, some kind of superset, rest, pause, like all these intensity techniques attached to them. Mind you, I was sleeping like 6 hours a night or 5 or less. Like, your body's not going to recover from that. So you need to find that dose, like we talked about before, that is hard enough, that forces your body to adapt. And we can talk about it in a different video, what that looks like, but not so much that you regress or you can't recover from it. So if you train like a bro, chest on Mondays, and next week you're still freaking sore and you can't move the weight that you moved the time before, like, you did too much. So finding that dose where in 3 to 4 days you're back pretty much like you could do it again in 3 to 4 days, that's a good mark. So you either fall into the camp of people that do way the hell too much, or people who just simply don't push themselves. That's the number one mistake I see men make, not just Christian men. All right, next. What does the Bible actually say about men being strong, physically and spiritually? So the cool thing is I don't have to give you my opinion on this one at all. It is right in 1 Corinthians chapter 16, verses 13 and 14. It says, stand firm and act like men. This is literally a book. It's right here. And it gives us the actual criteria for what being strong as a man is. And what it looks like in very layman's terms is we need to stand firm. We need to be watchful. And that is a military term, meaning we need to be proactive. We need to be aware of what's going on within our family. What are your kids watching on TV? What type of things are getting through your eye and ear gates as far as influence goes. And on the physical side is if there is somebody that is going to try to break into your home, are you prepared for that? Are you watchful? Right? So that's first. It says actually does say to be strong. So we need to physically be strong, like AKA you need to be strong. You need to be able to do stuff, exert your will on other people, but also spiritually strong, which is actually more important than physical strength. And I hate saying that because I love physical strength, but spiritual strength is way more important. And what that looks like is being able to endure pressure and pain for an extended period of time for the people that you love. So we think about the apostles, or just a lot of God's people in general, David, a lot of these people, but the apostles are a really good example. Paul is a really, really good example. How much pain did he endure in his ministry as he was spreading the gospel? I mean, he was shipwrecked multiple times. He was stoned. He was flogged. He went hungry so many nights. He was in prison like 3 times. And eventually he was actually crucified for his Savior, right? For the sake of the gospel. That is spiritual strength. Standing firm, enduring pain and pressure for the sake of the people you love. That's spiritual strength. All right, next. How do I lead my family when I'm barely able to keep my head above water? I think this circles right back to what's the one thing that I can do, this week that my wife would notice. It's the same thing. So you have to be able to get your head above water first. And this is going to start with number 1, rest. Making sure that you are a Sabbath man, getting that rhythm of rest and work so you can be above water, have energy mentally, emotionally, physically, to be able to pour into your family. So, because when you're leading, let's be honest, leading isn't just like being the CEO of a company. When you're leading your family, you're actually serving your family. That's what leadership is as a man in a household. You are serving them. You are washing their proverbial feet, taking care of them. We think about leadership as like a man in charge. That's not what it is. It is leading by example, and it is service. That's what leadership is. So we need to be fresh. We need to make sure that we are within rhythm. Because when you're tired, I'm not a very good human. When I'm tired, I'm grumpy. I'm a lot shorter. I mean, shoot, I just finished a contest prep, and within like a week and a half, my wife was like, "Oh my gosh, like the life came back to your eyes the moment you got some food and sleep in your life." And it's true. Like I am way better of a human when I'm not tired. And that was the main drain, was not the food. It wasn't the body fat loss. It wasn't being 3% body fat. It was getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, because when you're in prep and your body fat's that low, you pee all the time. And so like you're just getting up constantly, very little sleep, very little like unbroken sleep. Not to mention you're doing cardio twice a day and training and eating way less than you probably should be in order to get that lean. So yeah, first is make sure that you're a Sabbath man. Make sure that you're getting that rest. And the next is you need to meet God before you meet your family every single day. And this is going to do so much. It is literally the cornerstone of how the foundation is built, upon which the house, which is your family, is built on top of that. So foundationally, be a Sabbath man, and then also make sure that you're meeting God in the morning before you meet anybody, even your wife and kids. All right, next. What is the difference between discipline and burnout? And how do men tell the difference? So I've been on both sides of this coin, and I am the type of guy who has flirted more on the burnout side than the discipline side. So I can speak to this not just from, hey, this is what I've seen, but also this is what I've experienced. So burnout is when I would call burnout the lack of discipline, because you are consistently doing more than you know you can recover from, or that you can manage, right? I would take someone going 80%, 100% of the time, versus someone that goes 100%, 80% of the time. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you're 0%, you're no good to anybody. So if you are in rhythm, like we talked about before, making sure that you are keeping that Sabbath, you are recharging your batteries, you're always going to be more useful. The act of discipline is being intentional about what you do, when you do it, and why you're doing the action. So how do you manage your time? That is the biggest thing that you can learn about discipline, is how do you manage your time? And I heard this quote, and I don't know who it's by, but we don't prioritize our schedule, we schedule our priorities. So looking at your calendar, looking at your block throughout the week, what are your priorities? You can tell a lot by a man in 2 ways. Number 1, look at the way he spends his time. Number 2, look at the way he spends his money. Those should be lining up. Those line up with where your heart is all the time. So those should be lining up with what God says our priorities are, which is him, our family, and then our work, and then the other things after that, right? So that's how I would go about that, is look at your calendar, get really freaking good at scheduling your priorities, locking down the big nuggets, and then knowing when to say no, right? You don't have to say yes to everything. If it does not serve you, if it takes away from those big priorities that God calls us to pay attention to, it is something that is a hell no for me, man. It's a hell no, and it should be for you too, because that's going to prevent burnout, which also makes you useless to your family. So I'll move on. Last one. How do I stop numbing out? Food, alcohol, scrolling, and start living like the man God actually called me to be. Well, this is something that like a psychologist would give you a long answer about. I mean, there's so much to unpack here. And full transparency, I didn't read these questions before; they were just given to me. We curated these, and clients have asked these questions. We've had people ask these questions, so we just curated some that were heavy hitters. I didn't look at them until right now. So, how do I stop numbing out? So first, I would ask myself, why am I numbing out? What am I trying to avoid? Is there change that I need to make? Is there a hard conversation? Is there a job switch I need to make? Is there something I'm afraid of? Is there some pain in my past trauma that I'm avoiding? For me, I used marijuana for a long time. We're talking at least four years consistently every night to go to bed because I couldn't go to sleep. And this was post-divorce. And then I also had a really rough year in 2020 where I got misdiagnosed with cancer, but it ended up just being Crohn's disease. Had a really fun little surgery where they took away like 6 inches of my small intestine and basically lost everything that I called my own, and built up over 12 years, literally within the span of like 3 months. COVID shut my gym down. I got divorced. I lost my health. I lost a lot of muscles because I was sick. I literally had to move back to Montana. I had a gym down in Reno, so I lived in Reno for about 12 years. And it was very painful, very painful. I fell into what you would call an identity crisis. And in order to fall asleep at night, because I couldn't sleep to save my life, I had PTSD, I had reels going in my head. I would have to smoke or take an edible or something like that to literally fall asleep at night. And that was me numbing it out because I never really addressed the core issue. I was using a Band-Aid to cover a bullet hole. The bleeding was still happening. I just couldn't see it because I was masking it with marijuana. And it never got better. It never got better until I started addressing the core issue. So I went to therapy. It took about 18 months and really sorted out what actually was the cause of this trauma, which, dated all the way back to childhood. And after going through that whole process, we did a lot of EMDR, which is a treatment that really addresses like some core limiting beliefs and trauma, like PTSD type stuff. And once we got through that process, I learned a bunch about myself. I learned a bunch about my coping mechanisms, the way that I handled stress and abuse and the anxiety that I had that I didn't know I had. I was able to cut out that, and wouldn't you know, like it got better. And so I would start with, what are you trying to medicate? Because we don't know that. Like, it's really hard to solve the problem if we don't know what problem we're solving. And then second is I would have an absolute game plan on how to come off the stuff that you're using to medicate yourself. If it's marijuana, you don't have to taper. In fact, I would say it's like a Band-Aid, pull that shit off right away. But if it's alcohol and you're an alcoholic, you're drinking a lot, you actually should taper that down, or at least go to some kind of rehab clinic, because there can be some serious side effects of just strictly pulling off. And if it's social media, which this is like the silent killer right now, is, we hate being alone in our own head, so we scroll. They call it death scrolling for a reason on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, YouTube. Hey, scroll to my page, watch my video. But it's a very similar coping mechanism, right? We're looking to avoid something, so you have to address what you're trying to avoid. And with the exception of alcohol, the other ones, cut cold turkey, right? You want to just, and if you have to, be harsh with yourself. Literally get rid of all of it. Like, if you need to cut out social media, delete them from your phone. Leave them only on your desktop so you can go on and just post and ghost. Like, get out. Especially like people like me, it's very essential to the business we run. We can't just dip it, but there was a time I pulled it off my phone. because it wasn't serving me, and it was taking me away from being present with the people that I loved. So that's my best advice there. And obviously, if you're in a really dark place, professional help. Like, find a really good therapist that is very versed in cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as EMDR or some other treatments that you have. If it is insomnia based, they do have insomnia EMDR, or sorry, insomnia behavioral therapy that is very, very effective. And you can do a simple search here right on Google and find some really good practitioners with that. But the point is address the problem, identify the problem, address the problem, and then be harsh with yourself and cut out the things, because it's an addiction. You can't have it around. If you were an alcoholic, you can't be just like, living around a bottle of vodka, right? You got to get that out of your house. So you got to get rid of the temptress that is in your way. So that's my advice there. So yeah, that concludes the 10. I get 30 minutes, not terrible, but either way, make sure, drop a comment below if you have any questions at all, for us to cover, or for me to cover next week. Make sure to subscribe, make sure to like, comment, blah, 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 share with your friends, all the things that YouTube wants you to do in order for the algorithm to be happy, to please the algorithm. And then also make sure to find your way over to our Instagram page, which is Fit Couple U. And if you want to look us up on the website, it is fitcoupleu.com if you want to schedule a call with myself or my wife to get to your overall goal of becoming a better, stronger version of yourself. So with that being said, hope you guys have an awesome week, and I will see you guys next time.